What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have a tip for you, maybe even a tournament tip. Like I said, I've got a tip for you, and this tip is one that I feel like is pretty important, at least it is to me, in decision making whenever I'm approaching one of my lies that is going to require me to scramble. This will help you in a scramble game a lot, in my opinion. Helps me quite a bit, and it's something I think I see a lot of newer players not utilize, or they just make a mistake. I call it a mistake that is unnecessary. It could help. So let's get into it. Okay, so for this tip, what I'm talking about is your lie and being smart about choosing how you do your next throw, and even thinking down to the point of whether you should mark it or not. So one of the primary things I'm going to look at is when I choose to mark a disc or not is not just something I just go walk up to and do it just because I'm marking it. Like in this lie right here, if I was walking up to this in a tournament, ignore this basket. This was the best place I could find for obstruction at my house. In a tournament, in a scramble situation, inches are everything. If I choose to mark this disc blindly, then that just puts me even closer to this tree, which means it blocks my angle off even more. So that means I have to get I'm closer to the tree, so in a patent pending or a backhand situation, more likely to hit my hand if I've marked this, and it also makes my angle even more severe. And it's the same thing on this side. The closer I am to this tree, the harder it is for me to get an angle. And I see it a lot where even when I'm putting, say I was putting at this basket but it's farther back and I'm right here, I wouldn't mark this. If the basket's like 20 feet further than this, I wouldn't mark it, because it puts me, there's a spider on my leg, puts me next to this basket or next to this tree, and it makes my putt feel a little weird. But that's all in decision making. That's one of those things I see people make that mistake quite a bit. This is one of the reasons why I think the PDGA, with their rules, should be changing the wording of what it means to establish your lie. Because some people say it's whenever you get to your disc is whenever your 30 seconds starts, which I think is kind of a stupid rule in general. If you're asking me, I think it should be kind of per situation, but you can't determine until you get to your lie sometimes whether you actually want to mark, because marking your disc is part of the game. And sometimes that decision, you have to look at the lie before you decide whether you should be marking the disc or not. Sometimes it is appropriate. Sometimes, say you are right next to this tree, you marking that disc gets you just by the tree. Certain situations, it's a very different feeling throw just by giving yourself the shot from behind the disc or the extra little area. And I don't mark discs usually whenever I'm throwing like par fours or something and I'm out in the open. I usually just don't mark, because mentally landing behind a disc this size is much easier for me than making sure I land behind a mini. And I also feel like for people watching you throw, it's easier for them to be like, oh yeah, he was behind the disc. 20 through instead of having that part where you throw from behind a mini and your foot's technically not right behind the mini, but you're still not foot faulting because you have the space behind the mini that's bigger. So that's me. And for the exact same reason that I may not pick up a disc is why I usually bag at least 2 of every disc in my bag. Because if I want to throw that disc again, but I don't want to pick it up and I want to keep that spot, I've got another one in the bag that will do the same thing. You just got to, some people it's not worth for them, and that's their game. My game is I don't care to carry 30 pounds of discs because my bag is heavy, but I've done it for so long I don't really feel it. But I like carrying everything and being prepared for every situation 2 or 3 times, and that's not for everybody. But might as well just throw a couple shots from right here just for the heck of it. We'll throw this down. And one thing I see a lot of people do too is they try to throw backhands across their body like this, which is not usually everybody, but it is a lot of times new people. All you need to do is make sure you've got a point of contact behind the disc with your left foot and that this foot is not in front of your lie. You can't throw it like this, but if you're right here, this is legal. And oh, if that went in, I hit the basket. Y'all can't see it at all, but I hit the basket. That makes a huge difference in your throw and your comfort, and it takes just a little bit of practice to get used to that. But instead of throwing from here, which is extremely exaggerated, and from here, which is awkward, this is it. A lot straighter of a shot. And don't forget, sometimes if you're in a situation that's really bad for scramble, to look in every direction. Every now and then, if you look up, you might find a hole in the ceiling that's going to get you further up the fairway. It might not get you out into the fairway, but you may get ground and get into a better position than throwing through a bunch of junk that looks like this. Like this is obvious, but there's an obvious window right here. But if you imagine that there was just bushes all right here, and then that little hole was up high, that advances you much more. So I mean, you've got everywhere to look. It's just make sure that you're in that mental area to where you're thinking about that stuff to save some strokes. But that is the tip that I have for you today. Hopefully you can utilize it. And remember, don't just blindly walk up and mark your disc. Assess your lie and then decide whether it's better for you to mark or to throw from behind the disc. That's all we got. If you like these tips, if you like the videos, leave a like, leave me some comments of what other tips you would like. If you've got ideas on certain situations that you want my input on, I am glad to share it. But that's all I have. Till next time, peace.